I never thought humiliation could come wrapped in silk and champagne. There I was, sitting in the third row at my younger sister's wedding, wearing the only formal dress I owned. A second-hand navy gown I'd carefully steamed the night before. My son, Ethan, sat beside me, swinging his legs under the white linen-covered table. He wore a tiny black suit I'd stretched 2 paychecks for. He looked proud to be there, proud to be part of something he believed was family. Maybe I hoped that too. My sister, Brielle, floated through the day like a movie star. She always had that energy, glowing, magnetic, loved by everyone, especially our mother. She got the compliments. I got the comparisons. She got the spotlight. I learned to blend into the shadows. But I still showed up. I clapped when they kissed. I smiled at strangers who didn't recognize me. And when people leaned over and said, "Wait, you're Em's older sister. You don't look old enough to have a 9-year-old." I laughed politely, pretending it didn't sting. Then came the speeches. First the groom's best man, some college buddy who told mildly embarrassing stories and got everyone to laugh. Then Brielle stood up, beaming, sparkling in her gown like something out of a bridal catalogue. She raised her champagne flute, and I raised mine too. I thought maybe this would be the moment. Maybe she'd say something kind. She began, "Thank you all for coming. It means the world to have you here to witness our special day." My smile held. "And of course," she continued, "I want to say a few words about my big sister." I turned to Ethan and gave him a hopeful smile. He looked up at me, eyes bright. For one perfect second, I let myself believe. Brielle kept talking, her voice soft and syrupy, her expression coy. "My sister is a real role model. She's strong, independent, a single mom, and very, very unwanted by anyone else." Laughter. Actual, real laughter. I thought I misheard her. I blinked. But no. She was smiling, tilting her glass, like it was the most charming joke she'd ever told. The clinking of glasses followed. Some guests chuckled awkwardly. Others, genuinely. My stomach dropped through the floor. Before I could collect myself, our mother, chimed in from her table with a loud, clear, "Well, she's like a used car, but hey, still runs fine and looks decent for the mileage." More laughter. It wasn't the kind you can shrug off. It was sharp, deep, cruel. The kind that echoes in your bones. I froze. My face burned. My hands twisted around the napkin in my lap, fingers white-knuckled. I couldn't look up. I couldn't breathe. I could feel my son's gaze on me before I heard him whisper, "Mom, why did she say that about you?" I wanted to answer. I wanted to tell him it didn't matter, that it was just a joke, that I was okay. But I wasn't. Not because of what was said I'd heard worse, but because he heard it. Because he was trying to understand why his mother, the woman who packed his lunches and stitched superheroes into his jeans, was being humiliated by the very people who were supposed to love her. I wanted to leave. Grab Ethan's hand and disappear. But then, I heard the unmistakable scrape of a chair. Connor, the groom, Brielle's picture-perfect fiancé, stood. He didn't look at her. He didn't look at the crowd. His gaze was locked on me. Not soft. Not hostile. Just determined. He walked slowly to the microphone and took it from Brielle's hand. The room stilled. He didn't smile. Didn't joke. "I can't pretend I'm okay with what just happened," he said, voice low and even. "I won't stand up here and let cruelty wear a tuxedo and be called family tradition." Gasps. Stirring. He turned toward Brielle. "You mocked your sister, your own sister, for being a single mom. You laughed at her. You made her son sit through that. You thought this was funny." Brielle's lips parted. No sound came out. Connor turned toward the crowd again. "I've heard a lot about keeping up appearances while planning this wedding. But if this is what this family calls loyalty, I want nothing to do with it." Dead silence. He turned back to Ethan. Looked him right in the eye. "Your mom is the strongest person in this room," he said gently. "Don't ever forget that." Then, without another word, Connor walked out. Just like that. The man Brielle was supposed to marry. Gone. No music resumed. No one clapped. Brielle stood at the head table, visibly rattled. Her perfect facade cracked. My mother stood and hissed, "Ungrateful boy. He humiliated you. Just like your sister, always making things about herself." But the spell was broken. Her voice didn't carry like it used to. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I stood, took Ethan's hand, and walked toward the exit. People parted like a tide. Some couldn't meet my eyes. Others looked like they wanted to say something but couldn't. As I reached the door, I heard my name. Claire. I turned. It was Grandpa Walter, my mother's father, who'd once taught me how to ride a bike, who used to call me Tigress. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have stood up for you a long time ago." I gave him a nod. I wasn't angry. I'd lived that silence. I understood what it cost. Outside, the night air hit my skin like a blessing. Cool. Honest. "Is the wedding over?" Ethan asked softly. I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "I think it ended the way it was supposed to." That week, a video of Connor's speech went viral. Someone had recorded it, over 80,000 views in 3 days. The comments poured in. "This man is a hero. I'm crying, every single mom deserved this moment. She didn't even have to defend herself. He did it for her. That's character." I didn't cry. I didn't post. I just sat in silence and let the weight I'd carried for years finally loosen its grip. A few days later, a bouquet of wildflowers arrived at my door. No note. Just a small card. "To the Tigress." I didn't need a signature. I knew it was from him. The wedding never happened. The Instagram posts were deleted. The wedding website went dark. Brielle quietly returned to her curated life. She never reached out. My mother called once. She didn't apologize. She said I had embarrassed her by not laughing. By not playing along. I said exactly one thing. "I'm not your scapegoat anymore." Then I hung up. It's been 6 months. Life didn't become a fairy tale. I still work the morning shift at a bakery and the evening desk at a small hotel. I still have to choose between bills and new sneakers for Ethan sometimes. But something is different. I don't walk hunched anymore. I don't shrink in rooms where I used to try to disappear. Ethan's different too. He asks questions now, big, brave ones. Like, why do some people laugh at others to feel powerful? Or, why didn't Grandpa speak up earlier? And once, he said, "Mom, I think you won, even though it wasn't a fight." He's right. Because I didn't yell. I didn't insult anyone. I didn't make a scene. I simply stood up and walked out. And someone else, someone unexpected, decided silence wasn't good enough. Connor didn't save me. He did something braver. He saw me. And he said, "No. Not today." 6 months had passed since the wedding that never happened. And I hadn't seen or heard from Brielle. Not directly, anyway. There were murmurs, mutual friends who said she was trying to move on, whispers that she'd tried to rekindle things with Connor, and failed. My mother, Judith, kept making rounds at her country club as if nothing had happened, telling anyone who'd listen that Connor had a meltdown and I had manipulated the situation. Manipulated. For walking out of a room where I was mocked in front of my son. Funny how people will twist your silence into a weapon when they can't control your voice anymore. But I wasn't concerned with them. I had work, rent, school pickups, and the joy of watching Ethan beam when he won his school's science fair with a volcano made of recycled soda bottles and a glued-on superhero cape. Then, one Tuesday evening, I got the envelope. Thick cream paper, gold-embossed lettering. An invitation. The Carter Family Autumn Gala, in celebration of legacy and new beginnings. It was addressed to Claire Adams and family. Family. I stared at the word until it blurred. The gala was to be hosted at the Carter's estate, my mother's side. It wasn't just a family gathering. It was the event. Politicians, donors, media guests. All of them would be there. And so would Brielle, apparently relaunching herself as the new head of the Carter Women's Empowerment Foundation. Empowerment. The irony nearly knocked the breath from my chest. There was a handwritten note inside from Judith. It's time we move past the unpleasantness. Let's present a united front for the family name. Wear something elegant. And try not to make it about you this time. I nearly threw it away. But Ethan was watching me, eyes curious. What's that? And somehow, without quite understanding why, I said, we're going. The night of the gala, I stood in front of my closet. My hands trembled a little. I pulled out a navy blue pantsuit I'd bought off a clearance rack months ago for a job interview. I added a pair of modest heels and tied my hair up. Ethan came out of his room in a crisp white shirt and vest. You look like a CEO, I said. He grinned. You look like someone who can't be messed with. God, I loved that kid. The Carter estate was as ridiculous as ever. Grand chandelier lighting, champagne fountains, designer name tags. As we stepped into the ballroom, heads turned. Some looked surprised to see me. Others didn't know who I was. That was fine. Brielle spotted us first. She was standing near the media board, dressed in deep burgundy satin, surrounded by photographers. She froze. Her smile didn't. It just tightened. Well, she said as I approached, you look recovered. I smiled. You look like someone trying too hard to pretend they've changed. She blinked. I didn't expect you to come. I know. She glanced at Ethan, who stood slightly behind me. I suppose you're here to cause a scene, she asked lightly, sipping champagne. I tilted my head. You're confusing me with yourself. Brielle stepped closer, lowering her voice. You embarrassed the entire family. You could have just laughed. It was a joke. You've always been so sensitive. I leaned in just enough to make her flinch. My voice was calm. You didn't make a joke. You made a public announcement about how little respect you have for me. You humiliated me in front of my child. And you laughed about it. A beat of silence. Then Judith appeared, sweeping in like a hawk in heels. There you are, she said sharply. Smile, there are cameras everywhere. I turned. Hi, Mom, I said, cool as ice. She kissed the air beside my cheek and turned to Ethan. Look at you. Still clinging to your mother's side. He'll need a father figure eventually. I froze. Ethan looked up at her, confused again. I saw that flicker in his eyes, the same one from the wedding. No. Not again. That's enough, I said, my voice low and steady. Judith waved her hand. Oh please. Claire, we're trying to move past things. You mean cover them up? You're still making everything about you, she snapped. No, I said, stepping forward. You just can't stand that I've stopped apologizing for existing. Gasps. Heads turned. Brielle tried to shush me. Claire, not here. No. Right here, I said, my voice rising just enough to be heard. For years, I let you talk over me, talk down to me, erase me. But I won't let my son think this is normal. I won't let him believe that cruelty, when said with a smile and dressed in velvet, is love. Judith's lips tightened. Brielle's cheeks flushed crimson. I turned to the crowd now watching. You want to talk about legacy? You want to celebrate strong women? Then don't hand out microphones to bullies who only know how to shine by dimming everyone around them. The room went silent. I took Ethan's hand. And just before we walked away, I said one last thing. To everyone here, if you're tired of pretending fake smiles mean real respect, join me on the other side of the room. If not, enjoy the champagne. And we walked. I didn't look back. Later that night, we sat in a diner. Just me and Ethan, eating pancakes at 10 p.m., him dunking his hash browns in syrup like it was a delicacy. He looked at me and grinned. That was awesome. I laughed. Really laughed. The next morning, I woke up to another flood of messages. Videos. Comments. This time from inside the Carter circle. Staff. Distant relatives. Even Brielle's ex-friends. A private Facebook group popped up. Claire's table, a place for black sheep, single moms, and anyone who's been publicly shamed by family and walked out with their dignity. Thousands joined in days. It wasn't revenge. It was recognition. Brielle never apologized. Judith sent one final message. Don't bother coming to the Christmas party. We need to protect the Carter image. I didn't reply. But I did host my own Christmas. In our tiny apartment. We strung up fairy lights. Ethan made cookies that burned slightly. My coworker's daughter joined us. We laughed, we ate, we danced barefoot to holiday jazz. It was the best Christmas I'd ever had. No image to protect. Just love. Just real. The Christmas lights had barely come down when the news broke. It started small, just a headline buried deep in a local media blog. Carter Family Foundation under review for misuse of funds. At first, I didn't react. It sounded like the kind of scandal rich families pay to make go away. But then someone forwarded me a leaked internal email. From Connor Wallace. Subject: Urgent, Brielle approved personal expenses under grant funding. I sat there rereading it, stunned. Connor, the same man who let his fiancée get humiliated at her own wedding, was now the whistleblower? I almost deleted the message. But something made me dig deeper. A week later, the full story hit the press. Turns out Brielle hadn't just launched her women's empowerment initiative for clout. She had siphoned nearly $1.2 million from the charity's operating budget to pay for private jets, wardrobe styling, and a PR firm that manufactured her philanthropic image. Worse, she'd falsely claimed to sponsor scholarships that never existed. The reporters were merciless. And Connor? He gave an interview on camera. I stayed silent for a long time, he said, staring straight at the lens. But seeing Claire stand up in that ballroom, I realized I'd been enabling the wrong people. I nearly dropped my coffee. Ethan peeked up from the kitchen table. Isn't that? Yeah, I muttered. It is. Connor looked hollow in the video. But also clear-eyed. Like someone who had seen himself for the first time and didn't like the view. That afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown caller. I let it go to voicemail. But he left a message. Claire, I don't expect forgiveness. But I needed you to know you were right. About everything. If you ever want to talk, I'd like to apologize properly. In person. I didn't reply. Not yet. Meanwhile, Brielle vanished from social media. Gone were the glamorous posts. The designer sponsorships. The neatly filtered feminist boss babe branding. Instead, former interns came forward. Ex-employees. A young woman tearfully described being bullied out of her job when she asked about missing payments. Within 3 weeks, Brielle's foundation was suspended. Her board of directors removed her. Her name became synonymous with feminist fraud. I wish I could say I felt triumphant. But honestly, I felt sad. Not for her, but for the little girl she used to be. The one who might have grown up differently if she hadn't been taught that image was more important than kindness. Then came the final blow. A call from a number I did recognize. Margot, my cousin, and Judith's personal assistant for the past 6 years. She sounded shaken. Claire, there's something you need to see. She sent over scanned documents. Private expense ledgers. Emails to political donors. A signed affidavit about tax misreporting. But the one that hit hardest. A letter from Judith to her lawyer, planning to have me declared an unfit parent and take custody of Ethan if I ever tried to sue the family trust. It was dated 6 months before the wedding. I couldn't breathe. All this time, she had never just looked down on me. She'd prepared to destroy me, quietly, legally. I forwarded it to my own lawyer. No more silence. That night, I sat with Ethan. He was building a Lego spaceship. Hey bud, I said gently. Can I ask you something? He nodded. If anything ever happens, if you ever hear people say mean things about me, or us, do you trust me to always protect you? He looked up, eyes clear. I already know you do. And that was enough. The next week, I published a blog post titled What It Costs to Walk Away, A Mother's Story, and shared every detail. The wedding incident, the invitation, the Carter Foundation fallout, and the letter. It wasn't revenge. It was truth. And it went viral. Suddenly, Claire's table had over 200,000 members. I was interviewed on podcasts, asked to speak at parenting events. People came up to me in bookstores and grocery aisles and whispered, "Thank you." Not because I'd taken anyone down, but because I'd shown them what it looks like to stand up and keep standing, even after the fall. And Brielle? Last I heard, she moved out of state. Rumors said she was staying with a friend. Others said she was trying to write a memoir. But no one wanted to publish it. The world had moved on. Without her. And Judith. Still silent. For now. But the IRS doesn't stay silent for long. And neither do I. The courthouse smelled like old wood and cold air. Judith sat 3 rows ahead, flanked by 2 lawyers in charcoal suits. She didn't turn around. I didn't need her to. The judge's voice echoed across the courtroom. The plaintiff alleges that Ms. Judith Carter attempted to weaponize guardianship laws to secure control over her grandson Ethan Carter, using fabricated evidence and threats. In addition, the IRS has opened a formal investigation into the Carter Family Trust for long-term tax evasion, misappropriation of charitable funds, and donor fraud. Judith's jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. Brielle hadn't shown up. Neither had Connor. They'd all distanced themselves the moment the federal letters started coming. And now, stripped of image, status, and applause, Judith looked exactly like who she'd always been underneath. A woman who built her empire on silencing anyone who didn't fit. 3 hours later, the gavel fell. The judge ruled in my favor. Judith's attempt to name herself Ethan's guardian was dismissed with prejudice. Her tax fraud case would proceed to federal court. Her family trust was frozen pending audit. I didn't smile. Not even as reporters rushed forward. Not even when Margot hugged me with shaking arms. Because this wasn't a victory parade. This was damage control on a life I had already rebuilt without them. The real celebration came later that night. At home. Ethan and I were sitting on the living room floor eating frozen pizza off paper plates. No servers. No linen napkins. No $800 centerpieces. Just us. He pulled out a crumpled drawing from his backpack. It was me. With a cape. "You're my superhero," he said shyly. My eyes burned. Not because I needed to be seen. But because for the first time in a long, long time I was finally seen by the one person who mattered most. 6 months later. I launched The Quiet Table. Not just a podcast or blog. A non-profit that provided support, grants, and legal aid for women estranged from toxic families, especially single mothers like me. In the first month alone, over 10,000 women applied for help. People shared their own stories in the comments. They made me feel like I was the problem. You showed me I wasn't. You gave me permission to leave, and still feel whole. You made silence loud. As for Judith, her face was on the local paper again. But this time, it wasn't glowing profiles or charity galas. It was a mugshot. Fraud. Tax evasion. Attempted coercion of legal guardianship. Brielle's name appeared as a cooperating witness. Judith was released on bail, pending trial. But the pedestal was already gone. And I never had to push her off it. She climbed up alone. She fell alone. People ask me now if I'd ever go back. Back to that house. Back to that name. Back to that family. But I never left family. I created it. With Ethan. With truth. With a community of women who no longer apologize for choosing peace over performance. I still host Sunday dinners. The table's not as long. The food's not plated by caterers. But the laughter is real. And the pot roast. Still warm. Every time. If this story moved you, if you've ever sat in a room where you were meant to feel small, or watched someone you love be made into a punchline, know this. You deserve better. Your voice matters. Your dignity is not up for debate. And you are never alone. Please like, share, and comment if you've ever had to stand up for yourself, or if someone once stood up for you when you couldn't. Subscribe for more stories like this. Because sometimes, the most powerful act is not shouting. It's standing tall and walking away with your head high, and your worth intact.